So Seamus, last week there was an unprecedented response to your episode on 1988. So we're back again this week with another episode of Bowling in the Years, and this week is 1998.
Right, okay. 10 years on, and in the meantime, you were born.
I was born in 1998, yes.
Yeah.
But it was a big year for other reasons, and would you care to tell us about that?
Apart from being the 200th anniversary of the 1798 rebellion.
Apart from that?
Yeah, it was. It was a really big year for bowling. There's a lot of things happened in 1998. One of the big events was the World Championships in Armagh.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really, really important event because it was sort of the first big international event held in Armagh after the Troubles. So it was a kind of a sign that the Troubles were over and things were moving on. And Donald Gribben, I remember Donald Gribben was very, very, very much involved in that and very much driving all of that initiative. And as it happened, Jerry Desmond, who had been chairperson of Bowlcommon, died, and I'd been elected chairperson, and he'd also been president of the IBA, so I had taken over as president of the IBA, the International Ball Playing Association, as well. So it was important from that point of view for me as well.
Yeah.
So it was held in Armagh, and Donald Gribben nominated me to ceremonially throw the first bowl, and I think he could have found somebody better to throw the first bowl, let us say. But anyway, I did. And I suppose the big memories of it was that Ireland won the 3 gold medals, the men, the women and the underage boys.
Yeah.
And I suppose for Michael Toll, this was a really, really big thing because he's from Armagh City, or near, close enough to Armagh City, so he was playing in his home place. He's from a place called the Grange, but it's not very far from Armagh City. And he won the gold medal there, so that was a really, really big thing for him. And of course, the other person, I suppose, that it was a big one for was Greta Cormacan.
Yeah.
And I suppose for Greta Cormacan, this was a major, major thing because she was the first woman to win a European Championship. She was the leader of the All-Ireland Roll of Honour. She was the leading in the Munster Championships,
Yeah.
and now she added the gold medal, the world gold medal, the very first person to win it. And it was a huge achievement for her, fantastic achievement. And I saw her being interviewed about it recently, and it was a huge event back in her own place in Lyre, near Clonakilty, and there were bonfires lit and everything to celebrate it. And it was fitting really that Greta would be the person because I mean, she was really the dominant bowler, Irish bowler, and before and since she has contributed more to bowling than almost anybody else really. She's really been involved at every level of the sport. So that was a big, big, big thing for her. And the other thing that happened in 1998 for Greta was that she won the All-Ireland final on her own road in Lyre. She passed her own house. So she bowled past her own house to win the All-Ireland, and that's a very special thing to happen as well. And just a few weeks, maybe even just a week beforehand, I think she played in the Munster final in Newcestown against Mary Brady, and she did phenomenal bowling, so she was really, really flying. And then in October, she came to the Queen of the Roads, and she got to the final.
Yeah.
And she was beaten in a dramatic last shot by Katrina O'Farrell. But she came back 2 years later and won it, but she didn't win it that year. She just lost in the last shot. And I suppose just an interesting footnote was that Katrina O'Farrell from Carrigtwohill, that was her first Queen of the Roads final, but she contested 8 in a row.
Wow.
She contested 8 finals in a row, which is phenomenal. You think about it, like it's incredible to contest 8 finals in a row. And Greta got the upper hand of her in 2000.
Yeah.
And nearly got the upper hand of her that day as well, but she didn't succeed. But it was just interesting. At the very, very end of 1998, just goes to show there was a big doubles tournament in the halfway near Ballinhassig,
Yeah.
and she ended the year winning that. So it was a big year for her. She won a lot of stuff in that year. And then Michael Toll, as I said, won the World Championship on his own road. But the thing I remember most about Michael Toll from that year actually is something different.
What is it?
And that is the All-Ireland final against Kieran Gould.
Yeah.
And I think it would be very, 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 very hard to find an All-Ireland final that was better than that final.
Why is that?
It was just unbelievable. Like the shots they threw, I mean, they just threw phenomenal balls. And Michael Toll, like, was, I think that might have been his 6th All-Ireland. And, you know, like, I suppose it's like anybody who's a champion, people are always questioning them when they're playing. Yeah. And they're saying, oh, well, you know, he's not so good, and Danny McParland might have been better, and Mick Barry was better, and so on and so forth. And of course, you can always make these comparisons. And it's only kind of afterwards when people reflect, you know, that they realise. But for me, that final in 1998 really demonstrated what a fantastic champion Michael Toll was.
Yeah.
And you can only demonstrate being a true amazing champion if somebody really challenges you.
It's true.
And Kieran Gould, like, he was magnificent. He bowled and bowled and bowled that day, but Michael Toll just, you know, he just was the champion, and he just wasn't going to be denied. And, you know, there was little bits of luck here and there, but, you know, all the great champions have luck.
Yeah. And
they make luck for themselves. And like, it was kind of a change of a tide, because 1998, up to 1998, John O'Driscoll had been the really dominant force in Munster bowling. And he hadn't been beaten, I think, since maybe 95 or 6, I'd say, since he'd been beaten in any score, in championship score. And Kieran Gould was kind of knocking on the door, but, you know, again, people were saying, oh, I don't know if he'll be so good or whatever. And there's a lot of pressure on him as well, because he was from Fairhill, and, you know, there's a lot of tradition in Fairhill, and the Dennis Scully and Timmy Delaney and all of that kind of stuff. And he played John O'Driscoll in the Munster final in Ballycorteen. And to be honest about it, that was one of the best Munster finals ever as well. And, you know, like, I think in 1998, Michael Toll demonstrated why he was such amazing champion to me. But I think also Kieran Gould, I think 1998 marked him out as being something special, you know, because, you know, he really had to perform to beat John O'Driscoll, and the way he performed against Michael Toll was just amazing. And actually, in October of that year, Kieran Gould won the King of the Roads. He beat James Buckley in the final of the King of the Roads, and James Buckley was like a superstar. I mean, and you know, like, James Buckley was one of the greats. So in that year, he beat John O'Driscoll, who was the king of the day. He really took it to Michael Toll in the All-Ireland final, who was the world champion. Yeah. And he beat James Buckley in the King of the Road. So he had a pretty good year in 1998 as well. So those things really are things that stick out in my mind. But there are two other things, if you bear with me.
Which are?
I mentioned Donald Gribben earlier. Yeah. Donald is a great character. Like, it was a really super guy for bowling, and a great character. You know, like like I had a lot of time for Don. He was a great guy. You know, he's still hale and hearty, but he's not involved in the bowling as much. But he played in the veteran final that year, the over 50s final on Greta's Road as well. And he played against a guy called Teddy O'Neill. And Teddy O'Neill was a great player, you know, like a really top-notch player. And the amazing thing about that score was the lead came 11 times. That meant 11 different times one of them was in front, which was just mind-blowing. And in the end, Don just got it on the last shot, which was amazing. And the other thing is kind of at the other end of the age spectrum. and this for me kind of really stands out because of the excitement of it, and that was the under-12 final, and that was between John O'Rourke and Cathal Toll.
Oh yeah.
And like we all know, both of them have turned out to be really super players. Like both of them, like are really, really amazing players. Cathal Toll comes from a really great tradition. His family, 3 generations of his family, like have been senior champions, and he's a super performer. And his brother as well, Peadar Toll, a fantastic athlete. But anyway, we didn't know much about him back then, I suppose. But he played against John O'Rourke in the under-12 final. And the thing I remember about it was when John O'Rourke won, he was so excited. I don't think I ever saw anybody so excited about winning a score in my life. And it was just it still sticks with me all these years later. And of course, John O'Rourke, I mean, he comes from a great tradition as well. And he won the All-Ireland Junior A Championship 2 years ago. And like, fantastic player. He's the first cousin of Aidan and David Murphy. So I suppose I don't have to say any more about him in terms of that. Anybody will know that. So they're the primary things that I remember from 1998. But it was a very, very packed year, and it was a big year for me because my firstborn was born. I was president of the IBA, and I was working with people like Joss Lusink and Susan Dirks and people like that, which were fantastic people. And I got to move around and see these people and visit them and so on and so forth. So it was a big year for me.
It's safe to say there were a lot of bowlers that stood out for you when you had to think about what you thought of 1998.
Yeah, and like I suppose you take about a year. It's just kind of hard to come down to 1 or 2 people, because there were a lot of players, contributed that year. Again, look, on a very small level, for my own club, Wayne Kingston played in an All-Ireland final in 1998. A great character, again, somebody that I suppose we grew up under the shadow of in East Cork and bowling, was a man called Liam Butler. Yeah. From Belleville in Cove, and he played in the vintage final in 1998 against John Crowley. Again, a great player who won a veteran championship before that. So I mean, I suppose you could go through a million things from 1998, but it was a great year, and there's a lot of really big memories from 1998.
It must be hard to do kind of a short overview. I feel like you've touched on a lot of things in this video.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing.
It's funny how a year that we chose basically at random could turn out to be a year where so much had happened.
Yeah, that's true. It was a big year. A lot of things happened, and there's an awful lot more things, and I'm sure that people watching this will say, oh, you didn't mention this or you didn't mention that.
And if there is anything you want us to talk more about, feel free to leave a comment and we might get to it in another video.
Yeah. I mean, Terry McDonough won the Munster Junior B Championship that year as well, who's Arthur McDonough's father, so that was another thing that happened. But look, I mean, if I mention any more, I'm going to get in real trouble.
Keep going all day.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And Juliette Murphy actually played in All-Ireland final that year. She played in the under-16 All-Ireland, I think. You know who Juliette Murphy is.
Of course.
Who doesn't? But in the All-Ireland final, she had to play with a 24-ounce ball,
and
she'd been playing it with a 28-ounce ball in the Munster Championship, and it was just such a big change. It was just hard to adjust to that. But
basically, a year where a lot of things happened.
Yes, absolutely.
We could probably do an entire series on 1998.
We could, absolutely. Yeah.
So as I say, if there's anything you want us to expand on more, leave us a comment and we might get to it in another video. We're just trying to keep these relatively short.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Trying to get me to shut up.
Thank you again, Seamus, for joining us here in your own house.
Okay.
And had you any thoughts for what year you might like to do next week?
Ooh.
I mean, the world is your oyster.
Yeah, but look, I think any year we'll pick, there'll be things to mention.
Well, we could stick with the theme and do 2000. The year the twins were born.
Yeah, we could do that. 2000. Yeah, why not?
Tune in next week for Bowling in the Ears, the year 2000.
The Millennium Year.
The Millennium Year.
Yes.